welcome to a special video. I'm here with Joanna from Guiding Star, our Vedic astrologer, and we're going to be talking about eclipses, particularly the eclipse set that's coming up now on the 26th of May and the 10th of June, depending where you are in the world, of course. But we're going to explore these eclipses and see what they have in store for us from a Vedic perspective, and we'll also dive in a little to the Western view as well, and try and put it all together. So just a bit about this eclipse before we jump on in. It's the first eclipse is occurring at 26 degrees of the sign of Sagittarius and Gemini. So it's a full moon lunar eclipse. And I won't go into the times for everywhere around the world that this is occurring. If you check out the description box below, I'll put times for all key places around the world for this eclipse on the 26th of May and also for the one coming up on the 10th of June for you as well. But basically an eclipse, in this case for the 26th of June, I'll just quickly show you on the astro wheel. For those who aren't familiar with eclipses, this particular first one is caused by the sun and moon being opposite one another in the sky, and that's a full moon. And when a full moon is formed in a conjunction with the nodes of the moon, and in this case they're not too far away. I think they're 5 degrees away from the full moon, is 5 degrees away from the nodes, which is very close actually. Then we get a lunar eclipse, the full moon eclipse, such as this one. In 2 weeks' time, after the 26th of May, we will be having a new moon eclipse. By that time, the little old moon's moved around the wheel and will be in a conjunction with the sun, forming a new moon eclipse in close proximity, in this case, to the north node of the moon. So I hope that helps people understand just how an eclipse is formed. That was a very brief version of how an eclipse is formed. But the first eclipse on the 26th of May, I want to just quickly break that down for you. It's going to be visible in Asia, basically, and Australasia. That's where it's going to be seen. So all through the Pacific, if you're on a Pacific island, you'll see this eclipse, and the western parts of the Americas, North and South America as well. It will be active and visible for about 5 hours long. And again, check the notes below, which will tell you when and what time for your part of the world. Now, lunar eclipses, they trigger events usually within a week of the actual full moon. Solar eclipses, which is a new moon eclipse, basically, they trigger events for 6 months following the eclipse. So we can expect that there'll be some activation with this first eclipse, either the week before or the week after the full moon in Sagittarius. Lunar eclipses also tend to affect the masses. When we're looking at mundane astrology, they affect us on a mass level, whereas solar eclipses are much more correlated to specific identities, like a president or a celebrity or somebody in a sort of a solar role. You know, the sun is the role of the identity, the celebrity, the king, the high-level person. And so we find that solar eclipses, new moon eclipses, affect people at that high periphery in society, influential on society in that way, whereas lunar eclipses are about the masses and the effect of things on the masses. And change will tend to happen especially if we're getting a personal planet triggered by this eclipse. And by that I mean our sun placement, our moon placement, Mercury, Venus, or Mars particularly, or our first house ruler, which could be Saturn, it could be Jupiter as well. If the eclipse is falling within proximity of our natal personal planets, then we're going to feel this eclipse much deeper and stronger than people who don't have personal planets around these degrees that we're talking about. In this case, on May the 26th, it's at 5 degrees of Sagittarius, or opposite that, 5 degrees of Gemini. So the change tends to happen with lunar eclipses from the inside out. So we change internally, our energy, our perspective, our ideas change, and then that then brings about external change. It's the old Hermetic principle of as within, so without. Solar eclipses work in a bit of a different way, but with a lunar eclipse, that's how the change occurs. Our perspective changes, and therefore our circumstances change. They're more emotional at a lunar eclipse because, like any full moon, the emotions are heightened. And often it brings a final endings, because that's what a full moon is. It is the fruition. The moon is at its fullest. It's only going to start getting smaller and smaller in the sky after it's reached its full capacity. So it symbolizes endings. So when we have an eclipse with a full moon, it symbolizes that somebody may leave our life, a circumstance may end, things might change and finalize. Now, that doesn't necessarily always mean bad stuff, because you can end your single life, or you can end a debt problem, or you can end a crappy job you don't like. So endings can be both good and bad, but we should expect the unexpected where eclipses are concerned regarding endings. And often we see with a lunar eclipse, the true nature of people is often revealed, for better or for worse. So if you've just got to know somebody and you're wanting to understand them deeper, watch out what happens around the eclipse, and you might get some insights into a person's true character. But that's just a general overview of what to expect in a lunar eclipse. Now, we are also looking at a Saros cycle with these two eclipses that are coming up. And I want Joanna to tell you all about that, because she is the expert and she has much insight to share. Joanna, I'm going to give you the floor. Go right ahead. Fill us all in.
Fantastic explanation indeed. The only things that I can add is basically when we have an eclipse, and why are we looking at this Saros series? It's basically because there's when we have an eclipse, we have the north node and the south node of the moon, just like you mentioned before. And what that means, and why is it an eclipse, and why is it so important? It means that we have a karmic duty to go through that eclipse, and with our individual small things that happen to us and the decisions that we make, we are literally helping us a whole karmic snowball that is happening for the whole world. So, and this is Saros eclipses, just to explain a little bit, they have a cycle of 1300 years. And what happens is that they start when the north node and south node are before the moon, very far away. And then every
something like
years,
18 degrees or something, isn't it, away from the
17 to 18. Yeah, 17 to 18. That's when a series starts. And then every 18 years, the north or the south node, they get closer and closer and closer until they reach, within 700 years, they reach the moon and the sun within 1 degree. And that is when that Saros eclipses is at its fullest, just like the moon cycles, like you mentioned, it's the same story. And that is when it has that snowball, it got to the biggest point, and then it's snowballing back, basically. So, and we have a mission. All the people that are going to be triggered by this eclipse, we have a mission, a karmic mission, basically. That means that, yeah, we need to do what these eclipses are telling us, good or bad. We had, the last one we had in June last year. That one is almost to the fullest. It's going to be full in this cycle. It's going to reach the biggest potential in 2038, so 18 years later. So that's why we felt it so heavily, all of us, 2020 June, and what happened then 6 months after that, we really felt it, all of us, because it's almost reaching. So let's see what happens in 2038 when that it's going to be a mission to fully change the world, basically. So we have
so when an eclipse is close to the nodes, occurs at its closest point to the nodes, it's at its strongest power. But when it's further away, like a partial eclipse, it's weak in its astrological effects then, and karmic.
We still have that mission, but it's going to be, a little bit smoother. And each of these series, based on the moment that the eclipse started, the analysis of that eclipse, the Saros series, basically starts at that point. This eclipse that we are talking now started in 1624. So you can imagine, a very long time ago.
Yeah.
That's when it started, and that was the starting point of this eclipse. And then based on that, there is a flavor of this eclipse, of this series. So every 18 years, basically, why do I mention this? Because you can look as well in your life 18 years back, and you can relate a little bit with the same flavor. Of course, it didn't trigger the same points in your chart, but it has the same flavor. So now it's important to see this. And what is this flavor of this Taurus eclipses? It's literally a great series. I love this one. It's going to be wonderful. We have great news, everybody.
Yay!
So the next 6 months, we are finally going to have a completely different state of mind. Change of spirit is going to be really wonderful. I really like this one. And
this is, excuse me, Joanna, this is based on
yep.
the chart. The flavor that you're talking about comes from an analysis of the chart when this eclipse series began. Is that right?
Yes, yes,
cool.
when it started. When it started, yes. The other interesting thing about eclipses that we need to always keep in mind, and that's why they always have a little bit of a relationship and management or money, you know, business thing, is that because the Mercury and Venus, they never travel far away from the sun.
Yeah.
So you will always have either Mercury or Venus eclipsed by the sun or moon. You know, it's always the same story. So, and basically our human life, it's literally based on business and relationships, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Probably the whole humanity. It's our drive to do things, right?
That's right. And the majority of readings I get asked to do will have to do with exactly those topics. So yeah, that's closest to our hearts, I suppose. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So what happens now? It's also, you know, if you look at all the eclipses, and I've been analyzing a little bit every series, and you can see literally a pattern of the last eclipses that we had were all about, you know, struggling with relationships, struggling with money, understanding. Maybe even the last one, for example, it was also with the Mars-Mercury combination, which gives conflicts that can never be solved. It's a very heavy combination. So we've seen it, right? I mean, the last 6 months, we've seen people, you know, rioting, fighting, being very stubborn, being very opinionated. We've seen a change in all the relationship way and how do we relate to each other, basically. We've seen that. We've seen a lot of tension. And it was the whole point to go through that, because unless you go through that, you cannot go out of it, basically. So it's, you know, like when you have a pimple on and it has to pop, you know, it has to. You don't get better until it pops, right? I mean,
so we've popped the collective pimple then.
We popped it, yeah. And now this wonderful eclipse comes in, which has the whole idea of it is that it involves sudden flashes of idea. So we are going to have an eclipse that is going to bring some kind of psychic unconsciousness to it. So we have to be very creative. We have to be very open-minded and pick up all these flashes ideas that we have. They might be psychic, and you might think, oh my God, I'm crazy. Why am I dreaming of this? Write down your dreams. Never think that they are crazy. You will get it. You will get the puzzle. Always pay attention to these things, and not only that, but dare to act on it, because that's the whole point of this eclipse. So everybody that gets hit by this eclipse, they have a mission to act on this, you know, what might seem like a crazy dream or a crazy psychic, you know, revelation. You need to act on it, and don't be scared about it. Just go for it, as crazy as it sounds, because that's the whole point of this.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is that you are going to feel, all the people that are going to be hit by this eclipse are going to feel really enriched. They are going to feel like, okay, finally, I'm feeling like I have a resource to go on forever, because that's what happens when you become creative. You get you get filled with that energy to be able to do anything, right? That's what happens when you are not creative. When you get depressed, you don't have a vision for your life. You don't have a vision for anything. And then your body gets down, your energy gets down, you get sick. That's what happens. This is the chance to be creative and to be individual and to be unique and to go for it, you know. So please do, whoever gets hit. Now, who is going to literally get hit by this eclipse? That's the interesting thing with transits, you know. we use transits as well in Vedic astrology, but I'm always very careful with taking things out of the context, you know, because transits are not meant to, I mean, imagine, right? We all talk about relationships. We generally, I'm a nerd, you know, I'm all about the numbers. And statistically speaking, Jupiter going through your chart is going to make a transit to your Venus, right? Which would indicate a transit for relationship, right? Every 3 years, maybe, yeah, through a square, a sextile, an aspect. It's going to be an important aspect, right? Can you imagine how would that be? And we don't want this, right? Can you imagine how would that be? That would say, okay, there's another Jupiter-Venus transit coming in 2 years. Yeah, you met Mr. Right, and you want to be with him forever, but sorry, there's a transit coming next to the next one, to the next one, we don't want that, right? It's not the point. So we always need to take transits in the context. What does it mean? Take it in the context of your natal chart. Take it in the context, if you want to have a starting point, take it in for Western, then, because we in Vedic astrology, we have other techniques as well to pinpoint which planet is active now in your life. Like, for example, with dashas that we calculate from nakshatras, and we know, okay, this is the time of your Mars dasha. What does it rule? Where it is? Well, it's time for your home and house. It's not time for a relationship. So a Jupiter transit comes to your Venus, it's still not going to bring a relationship. It's useless to start looking for the transit, you know, because it's
but it might bring you some brand new furniture to decorate your home with, like
exactly,
because if that's what your theme is, yeah.
But for the Western technique, then start with your solar return. See what is the theme of your solar return. Where is the profected year lord, the ruler? Where is your ascendant ruler? And always keep in mind that planets that are not, that they have nothing to do with your ascendant or your profected year lord, year ruler or such, those events are going to happen around you. They are not going to happen to you. So that's very important to notice, because every year there's, all the planets are doing something in our lives. It doesn't mean that they do something to us. They are doing things in our life, you know. It can happen to your colleagues, and then you are, you know, adiacently next there, you know, but it happens next to you, not to you. So pay attention to those things and don't take transits out of this context, basically. Start with that. Maybe use also, you know, we have solar return, lunar returns for every month. Yeah. See the context of the month. You can also use the solar when it comes back to the same degree every month in different sign. You can also use that chart to see, okay, what's the theme of this month? If you take those out of the context, then it's useless for us to talk about this, because even if we say, oh, life changing, it's not. And you know, I was thinking all the time, because it would be so easy, right? It would, if we only look for transits, it would be so easy to say, yeah, for people born on the 5th of March between 8 and 10, because that would be the ascendant, this will happen, right? And then we would alert the city halls, look, all the people that are born on the 5th of March are going to get married today. So be prepared, because we have 1 million people coming to your door. You know, it doesn't work like that, you know, it never does. So don't take it out of the context of your chart, never do. And I think it's important, because I don't want to get into, you know, talking about things that might happen to this sign or that sign, and it's out of the context, and then they say, oh, this doesn't work. Of course it doesn't, you know.
Right. So that's yeah. I mean, I do the, you know, I do the weekly forecasts and everything, and that's my one struggle with it. It's just so general, you know, and you might feel this very loosely. Some people might feel it very profoundly, but it's because your chart is where you've got to look for what action is taking place. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out. It's so important. You know, we can't obviously sit here and do a reading for everybody, or we never live. We'd be in front of the camera forever. Yeah, so it's good.
Yeah, so I think it's good to give some pointers for the people where to start and drill down, and then you will get to the transits, which are going to be trigger transits, and then you can take it in the context and see what happens. So, but what happens with a solar and a lunar eclipse? First of all, in let's say, Vedic Persian techniques, let's say, when we look at transits, each planet has its own critical house, we call it a critical house, where when it transits, it's going to make for things more lasting in your life to happen. So basically we have the sun, which is the first and the ninth house. Those are the critical houses. Then we have the moon, which is the second and the fourth house. Then we have Mars, which is the third house. The critical house for Mars is the third. Mercury is the fourth house. Then we have Jupiter, which is going to be the seventh house. Interestingly enough, that's the critical point of Jupiter to transit. Venus is going to be the 9. And then Saturn, the interesting thing is that for Saturn, we have the 6th house and the 10th house. So basically, those are the critical houses. If you have Saturn transiting through your 6th or your 10th house now, that's the best because it's a critical point for Saturn to transit, to start a new cycle in your life for those houses. It's important for your health because when Saturn transits the 6th, then it's your chance to make long time lasting improvements, completely lasting improvements. It can be though that you might get a trigger because you might get somehow sick, and that makes you think like, oh my God, I really need to change drastically my whole life. Because, you know, if it doesn't transit, it can also be, I'll explain why, also when it transits the 4th house. But mainly, you know, you hear all about these stories about people trying diets for 10 years and nothing worked, and they are still not getting healthier or whatever, because it didn't transit the 6th. When you have a transit to the 6th, that's the time to get, that's when it's going to work. You really get it. You really get the chance. And it's very important because it will take you for another 29-year cycle, you know, so it's really important to make those changes. So Saturn in
the restructuring element of Saturn coming to the house of the health and the well-being and diet and exercise.
Exactly, yeah. And the thing is that Mars and Saturn like to be in the 6th because Mars, when Mars is in the 6th, it helps you fight the good fight.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
it makes you, it puts the logic in to literally go against your enemies. And when I mean enemies, sometimes we are our biggest enemy. Right? So it helps you. Saturn, it gives you the resilience to be able to get the strength. And Saturn, that's the thing about Saturn. Saturn is all about our resistance to disease. When you have a bad Saturn in your chart, then you are not so good in being able to handle a lot of hardship. A good Saturn is able to do that, and it's going to be, you know, very, very smooth ride to getting things better. So that's good.
Yeah, I have Mars in my 6th actually, and I've been told and have seen this play out very strongly in my life that, you know, you will always win over your enemies with Mars because it's the winner. It doesn't mean you'll have less battles to fight or court cases to deal with or anything, but when you do, you'll come out victorious if your Mars is in good dignity and strong and what have you. So, yeah, there are, as you know, benefits to having malefic planets in malefic houses. They kind of cancel out the bad effects of the malefic planet, let's say.
Exactly, and we have the malefic planets anyway. Might as well have them in their favorite places,
That's
right?
right, where they're doing some good.
Yeah, they are doing actually some good. Mars though doesn't like to be in the 8th. That's when things that you get in trouble with Mars in the 8th. That's where he doesn't like to be. So you know, I would rather have it in the 6th than in the 8th. You know.
Yeah. Now, why that with Mars in the 8th? What makes him uncomfortable there? Is it that he doesn't handle crisis well, or what?
Because Mars is the general. You know, Mars needs to Mars is the problem solver right now. When the house is burning, you need Mars.
Yeah.
You know, when you get sick, you need Mars to say, okay, guys, I'm the general, we go there. When it's in the 8th house, it's all about, you know, breaks. But breaks, it can mean, you know, a break can be a breakdown or a breakthrough. You can see it like that. That's why it's also all about and then when are all the breaks around it, Mars doesn't know what to do anymore. You know, he's the general, but where it's a fire there, then it's a fire there. It's like, You know, it's just, and it becomes more violent, you know, it becomes more aggressive, and it's just not, it's just
like an
not
aspect to Pluto would be with Mars. Yeah.
It's just not a good place for Mars, you know. It makes it for these breaks, whatever it is, to be more, a little bit more aggressive and a little bit tensioned, and but in the 6th, wonderful, perfect, great, wonderful.
Great.
So, and the thing is that this eclipse, first of all, like you mentioned, so there's two, the two eclipses, the lunar one based on the Yamakoti center of the Earth. That's where we are calculating according to our teacher.
Do you want to just explain what the Yamakoti is? Just briefly?
Yeah. Yamakoti is basically what we call the center of the Earth. So when we are looking, you know, whenever we try to look for world events, normally we would use the place of the capital of the country, basically, to look for a specific country. But when it comes to the whole globe, we need something to use, right? We need a place to use it.
Yes.
And based on the latitude, longitude, and equatorial line, and how the Earth is tilted, I don't know all the details to give you right now for the calculation of this. But basically, we have a center of the world, and that is called Yamakoti. And it's 0 north 0 and 165 east 46. Those are the coordinates.
In the Pacific Ocean somewhere.
In the Pacific Ocean somewhere, indeed. There is a whole legend about Yamakoti. There is also another, I think there's a place also close to India in the ocean that it's also called Yamakoti. It's not that one, it's the other one, just not to get confused. Of course, this is just a choice. You may choose whatever you want to choose to calculate world events. We are just saying, you know, it's an option. It's an option. We are using this one to calculate all world events. And why did I start with it? What did I want to say?
Did you want to?
Yeah. Based on that, the degrees of the eclipse. So based on this location, the lunar eclipse on the 26th of May, it's at 5 degrees of, the sun is at 5 degrees of Gemini and 5 degrees of Sagittarius, the moon. And the solar one that is on the 10th of June, it's sun and moon, both of them at 1926 of Gemini. Okay. Rahu and North Node and South Node are currently at 10 degrees 43. You know, that's where they are going to be. Those are the most important. Whenever we look at an eclipse, we look at planets that are with the nodes. It can be, for some eclipses, it can be that the nodes are in a different sign. It can happen as well, because they just need to be within the 17 degrees from the sun.
That's going to happen in November. We're going to have an eclipse like that, where it's an out of sign.
It's an out of sign, but then still look what planets are with the nodes. Those are, because that's what makes an eclipse, right? And that's what makes it karmic. So, and this eclipse has both Venus and Mercury in both eclipses. Venus and Mercury are in Gemini.
I'm just going to share my screen. It's a wheel chart, and it is for where I live in Australia. So the ascendant will not be the same as what you're looking at with Yamakoti, but everything else should be pretty bang on. Let me just share that. So there we are, people. So you were saying here is the sun for the May eclipse on the 26th. Sun at 5 degrees, moon at 5 degrees, and here are the nodes at 10 degrees. That's the north node there in Gemini, and it's within 11 degrees of Venus and 14 degrees of Mercury. Did you want me to go to the eclipse that's coming up for the 10th of June?
We can look a little bit of this one.
This one, sure.
And, I think maybe it's a good visual for the viewers. So basically, why are we mentioning these degrees? These degrees are very important in the sense of, here is where you see, based on your natal chart, if this eclipse is going to impact you or not, because there are many people that are not going to be impacted by this eclipse at all, you know. It's also, you know, but you get impacted by the other eclipses. Don't worry about it. You always, by some eclipse, you always get hit, you know. So
yes, sooner or later, you can't escape it.
Exactly, yeah. So the thing is that to have either a personal planet, right? The ruler of your ascendant is one of the most important, because that's you. Also your first cusp and 7 cusp degree or whatever angle. So for all dual signs, they are going to hit them in one way or the other. So all Sagittarius rising, Virgo rising, Gemini rising, you know, Pisces rising, you bet. This is an eclipse that is going to impact you, especially if you also have planets on angles. This is going to be important. You need to be aware that you are one of the, you know, people chosen for the mission.
I like the way you put that.
To drag the world into new creative insights that are going to be all prophetic and psychic, and you have a mission to act on it, not only sit at home and dream nice about I don't know, this and that. You have to really, you have to act on it. So
I would also, may I add to that?
Yeah, of course.
Also, this eclipse is making a square to Jupiter. So we've got a T-square forming between the moon and the sun and Jupiter. And in evolutionary astrology, this is a skip step. Now, this is not a natal chart skip step. It's a transiting chart skip step. So the message in that interpretation of this chart is that particularly for people who are ruled by Jupiter, so Sagittarius people or Pisces strong people, there's a need to attain meaningful success in the world in order to, let's say, rectify this skip step energy, to have some sort of meaningful, purposeful mission, like you say, for success in the world, or to be appreciated for the meaningful success that we instigate under this eclipse. And it's usually going to require some sort of risk or act of faith to bring it about. So if you're ruled by Jupiter, Pisces or Sagittarius people, you might be being called to take an act of faith or take a risk in order to attain some sort of meaningful success for the world and in the world under this influence. I just thought I'd add that.
That you are going to have really good insights. They are going to be really prophetic things that will have to, you know, you have to wake up your inner belief in, let's call it the universe, but first of all in you and your purpose. And if you've been doing things that are not worth it to spend your time with, now it's time to, you know, to follow these dreams and prophetic insights and be creative and go for it. You know, it's time to be brave and to go for it. You know,
love it.
And the interesting thing is that, you know, there is whenever we analyze any type of chart, there are a few Persian yogas, right? And the first one, you know, the first thing that you do, just a snapshot of the chart, even for your solar return, whenever I use that all the time. Look for, there is a yoga that it's, I don't know, I don't remember the name anymore. Let me see if I can find it very quickly. It's called the Ikavala yoga. Ikavala yoga, it means good fortune yoga or great fortune yoga. And that's when all planets are in angles or in 2nd, 5, 8, and 11.
Right.
So whenever you see a chart, it rarely happens, but you might see, you know, that you have, for example, 6 out of the visible 7 planets in angles or in 2, 5, 8, 11. Wonderful. That's a good fortune year. And I always thought, because, you know, in Western astrology, we always think of square and oppositions to be, you know, enemies or bad things. But then you have this yoga where all planets are in angles, and it's a good fortune yoga.
Yeah.
And I found,
they're highly manifesting. Hard aspects are highly manifesting aspects, but they often require, like we've been talking about, pushing through something or taking a risk or, you know, taking some action in order to manifest, but they will bring good results.
To get off the couch to do something. Exactly. Yeah. You know, because I never found squares necessarily a bad thing, but I do find it that you need to put some effort into it. You know, it doesn't happen just like that. You know, things don't happen. You need to. And what it means, whenever we start doing something, taking action on something, it means that we make a choice not to do something else.
Yes.
And that's where I find that probably the whole perception of being a bad thing is because we are not so willing to change. We are always afraid of the unknown. We are always afraid of change, and we always see it as a bad thing. And that's where we see and we perceive these squares as a, hard aspect. It is hard, but that means that you have to make a choice. You can't, we are humans, we are limited. We can't be in two places at once. We can't do two things at once. We can't, walk and fly. We can't do two things in the same time. So whenever there's squares and opposition, it literally means you have to put an effort into it and make a choice,
Yep.
And it's important. It's very important. And now we literally have, we have Sun, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, and the Moon being in angles from each other. The only one that is not in an angle is actually Saturn. And Saturn and Mars are not in this combination of being in angles from each other, right? Because they are in angles from each other. So for dual signs, you bet, guys, this is important. It's important. And the closer you have your ascendant degree to this eclipse, the more important it's going to be.
Right. So
the other Persian yoga that we use, we call it a full yoga. It's a Purna yoga. When things, that's another thing that you look in your chart. So first of all, see if planets are, how many planets do you have on angles or in 2, 5, 8, 11, because those are the rewarding houses. So in the first house, in the angles, you start doing something. In the 2, 5, 8, 11, you get something, right? From somebody. That's the rewarding.
Receptive houses. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the first one. Then the other thing is to look for dignities of the planets. If you have 4 planets out of the 7 in good dignity, 4 or 5 or whatever, especially the slow moving ones, you want the slow moving planets to be in good dignity. There are some other yogas that I'm not going to get into because otherwise it's going to be, we are going to be here until tomorrow. But you want this, mostly the slow moving planets like Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn to be in good dignity. Because why? I'll just tell you very quickly. Mars and Saturn, when they are in angles from other planets, they can ruin a good yoga. So it looks like you are getting a house, but you are not getting it because you have Mars or Saturn in an angle from that yoga, right? So that's why things don't happen. So you need to pay attention to those. But if Saturn or Jupiter, which are slower moving, are in good dignity, that literally saves that yoga and things are actually going to happen in a big style, because the slower moving planets are less temporal. They are literally taking effects for a very long time. And you want slowing moving planets like Saturn to be in good dignity, which we have now. We have Saturn in own house, we have Jupiter in own house, and we have Mercury in own house. Perfect. That's wonderful. This is a very, very good sign for things to happen. The other thing is the closest the planets are in within 1 degree plus or minus from your natal planets, that's when things are more powerful. That's when planets are really helping each other to make things happen. And then the other thing is you want the moon to empower everything. Moon being in the first part of a sign, it's actually always good, because that means that there's always a greater chance that the moon will be applying to all the other planets, which means that the moon will be empowering all the other planets. You want a good moon, because the moon is the moon is that, that adapting part of us. It's something that adapts to everything. You want a good moon to adapt to all these things. And to empower all the events that are going to happen. So wonderful. This is wonderful. Mars being debilitated is actually fantastic, because that means that we are less belligerent. Mars is not really, it's low there, but it's more sleeping. It's not really that it's completely handicapped there being debilitated, because, it's in a friend sign. Moon is a friend of Mars. So it's time for the general to take a rest as well. I will take a Mars debilitated in Cancer than Mars in Gemini or Virgo any time of the day. Mars does much better there than in Gemini or Virgo. So Mars is actually wonderful. That means that we are going to have 6 months of, you know, wonderful, not belligerent people with Mars in Cancer that are born. They are extremely nice people because they don't try to convince you of anything. They are not stubborn. They are very nice to be around, you know. They're really wonderful, you know, people. And especially when the moon is also good, the ruler of Mars, when the moon is also good, they also adapt to things very easily, you know, and they are able to be open to everything and to people in general. So it's
Beautiful.
It's a good chart. Okay, sorry, you wanted to say something?
No. I was going to say the last aspect the moon will be making before it leaves Sagittarius will be in opposition to Mercury, from what I can see here, which I don't know if your interpretation of that would be okay. I think as far as horary.
Moon Mercury, when they are in any aspect, especially when they are conjunct, the Moon Mercury makes for unrealistic expectations. That's one. When you see Moon Mercury in people's chart, it's all about, you know, expecting for the world to adapt to them, and they are not open of things of them adapting to the situation and the world. So now you create an expectation. It's completely unrealistic. You can't expect for the world to give you everything that you need, and for the world to, or anybody on this earth, because we are all humans, you know. And there's always that expectation. It makes, you know, big dreamers, and it's a recipe for disappointment, literally.
Yeah,
that's what it does, you know, Moon Mercury, unfortunately. So
we need that being the final aspect that will occur before this eclipse moon leaves the sign of the eclipse, Sagittarius. We'll just need to be aware of that potentially playing out, having too bigger expectations of things, perhaps.
We need to keep realistic, but there are things that are helping as well, the moon, because you know, even with aspects, you cannot just take an aspect again out of the context, because the same planet, it will be aspected, look like this moon is going to be aspected by Jupiter as well, very strongly. Then even if you have an unrealistic expectation, you are going to be helped by Jupiter. So you stop in time and you say, you know what, it was an unrealistic expectation. I see the purpose of it, and I'm going to be fine with it. You know, when Jupiter helps the moon, it's a wonderful, they are really good. They work really well together. So it means, you know, you have the sun helping, which it says, you know what, this unrealistic expectation is not you. The sun is who we are. And the sun is going to help and say, no, that's not you. It's not worth it. See the possibility. Let Mercury see the possibility of things not working out. And then Jupiter says, and you know what? That was all for a purpose. I'm fine with it. Let's move on. So it's not all that bad, you know. It's only one part of the whole thing, of everything.
And a very small part at that too. Yeah, very small part at that. Did you want to share the Vedic charts that we had up before?
I think we can work a little bit with this, just to point out who is going to be more triggered by this eclipse, also based on transits to critical houses. And I just wanted to mention a little bit this, you actually, you know, Melbourne is actually quite close to this Yamakoti point. So actually, we also have from Yamakoti also an Aquarius rising. It's at 6 degrees, not at 0. So we are a little bit off. And also the solar return is also with Aquarius rising. So both lunar and solar eclipse are both with Aquarius rising, which is good. It's a good thing. The thing is with Aquarius, you know what the interesting thing is with Aquarius is that Aquarius is that sign, and that's why I think, that's my opinion again. But thinking about it, I've been thinking a lot about it. Why do we call it, even in Western astrology, why do we say that Aquarius is the sign of freedom? Because Aquarius, even as a body part, is the shanks, you know, the lower part, which we never think of. You know, you never use that. You use your hands, you use your upper body, you use your feet, you use your knees, you use the shanks, you never pay attention to them. So the thing is that when we have in our natal charts good planets in Aquarius, we never sweat the small stuff. We never bother with the little things, you know. That's a good thing. It's a wonderful thing. And look, there's Saturn there being in its glory, in its actually it's Mula Trikona, not only own sign, but it's literally getting the juice there in Aquarius. That's us. That's the common people. I know that a lot of people say that Saturn is the government. It's not. It's the common people. The sun is the government. It's not. Saturn is the common people. It's all of us. It's our resistance to disease. It's our, you know, resilience, our capacity to resist any hardships. And look at that. I mean, we are all, the next 6 months, we are going to be, all of us, the common people, in our own glory. It's wonderful. It's good for the whole world because we are going to be much more resistant to any disease, of course, because we are talking about this situation.
That's wonderful. We all need that at the moment, don't we? Yeah.
We all need that at the moment. I know that Saturn means restrictions as well. Yes, it does. We need restrictions because normally Saturn, what it does in a good chart, it needs to be in the 7th though to do that. It's putting restrictions of the things of the world that we don't need. If we have a Saturn natally in our 1st house, we literally take on all the dirt of the world and all the bad energy and we make it our own. And that's why Saturn, it has its purpose. Restrictions are not bad, guys, but it has to be good restrictions. Don't take the bad energy of every little thing that happens in the world, you know. That's not our purpose and point to do that, you know. We are meant to be, and you know, it was a very interesting definition of happiness. What is happiness? It's actually absence of misery.
Yeah.
You can consider yourself lucky and happy if you don't have misery in your life.
Absolutely.
That's what Saturn does, keeps away the misery. If you take it in your life and you take it on you, of course you get sick. That's why Saturn also rules disease, because we are not able to put the boundaries to get rid of the things that we don't need in our life, and we get sick, you know, because it's not ours. We are not meant to have every other people's problem make it our own, you know. No. it's not. And the other thing is, transits wise, when Saturn goes to the 1st, and this is for the whole world, for the whole globe, and this is again us, that represents Saturn is the karka of the slaves, the common people, the servants. It's not the representative of power. No, it is restrictions. I give it to you, but it's for a purpose. The thing is that Saturn is also time. When it transits the 1st house for the globe, right? When it transits the 1st house, it means that we realize that we don't have time to pay attention to waste our time on little things that do not matter. And this is going to happen for all of us. We are going to have these insights. Let's not forget the context of this eclipse. It's all about getting, you know, insights and be creative and get psychic revelations and prophetic dreams. And what is going to be about? It's going to be about us wasting our time with every little thing that goes on the internet about this and that and the news, and paying attention to, you know, sweating all the little stuff that are not even ours. It's not our problem. Our own problem is to take care of our immune system, be resistant, be resilient, and, you know, put our time and energy where it has to be put. So that's a good thing. That's a wonderful thing. You are going to see a lot of people that are going to say, oh my God, I have been wasting my time with all these little things that don't matter. Wonderful. That's fantastic. I love it, love it, love it. The other good thing is that Jupiter is in its own sign. Jupiter it's in general what we always call, you know, represents religion. Well, we can definitely conclude in the last 100 years that the religion switched from the church to the medics, or to the right.
Science.
That's the science. That's our religion now. And of course, Jupiter has been through a lot in the signs of Capricorn, being conjunct with Saturn, where he got hurt. but Jupiter also helped Saturn, because Jupiter, it was delighting Saturn. However, there was the expectation, a big expectation from the people, from Saturn, when it was conjunct, of Jupiter to bring solutions and to bring this and that and that. And Jupiter got hurt there. All this medical and science world, it was not able to perform as good with all the pressure of Saturn and all the restrictions and all the, but it had a pressure, what type of pressure, to focus on these problems. But now Jupiter will get the insights, especially because it's part of this eclipse, being in an angle from the eclipse. So there's a great, wonderful for all the science to get fantastic insights, new information, get new ideas, be creative. So now it's the time. I was telling people, based on again, I'm not telling anybody what to do. It has to be your own choice. We are just analyzing some astrological things. I was telling everybody, at least in my circle, people that I know and clients, of course, with the last eclipse, it was not meant for us to act on anything because it was too impulsive. We were for sure going to make a lot of mistakes with that Mars Mercury. So I was telling people, don't take any action. Don't buy a house these 6 months, the first 6 months of, don't buy a house. Don't go take action with this or that. Don't go fight for I don't know what. Don't start anything. Don't make decisions for your body, for your health with this. Just let it, let these events come to you, but stay away. You be an observer and don't act on anything,
So this is from the eclipse set that occurred in December. Yeah.
The last 6 months. And this is now, guys, whatever you want to do, go. These are the 6 months that we have to do it, and it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be great. Nobody's going to hold you behind, because Mars is low, so it cannot be, that you are going to get a lot of how do you call it? A lot of somebody tracking you down, or enemies or anything. So you have full, sail, you have the wind, put the sails up and go for it, That's the whole. This is the time to act and to start things, to initiate things.
Oh, great.
Now, if the science come up with things, this is the time where you can go for it. The last 6 months, I'm sorry, I know this is going to be controversial. If you took action last 6 months for your body, took some decisions for yourself, it might be with repercussions, but still, it's still a good chance that even if you have some, bad things coming from that, like, consequences from those rash decisions, let's call them like that, still you will find a solution now. It would have been better not to do it, but still there is a hope. It's a wonderful. And the interesting thing is that the fan of this eclipse, and the most transit wise, based on also critical houses, is going to be Cancer ascendant.
Oh, they're going to do well out of this. How wonderful.
Cancer rising, it's going to be, for most of them, of course, keep in mind, right, whatever we talked about, keep your chart, your natal chart, your solar return, your lunar returns, keep them in mind, because you need to have the focus. But this is going to be literally for Cancer, is going to be life-changing years. They have a transiting Saturn in their 8th house, which is also a critical place, which changes your career completely.
Why career in the 8th?
Career in the 8th, because Saturn is the critical house for the Saturn is the 10, one of them.
Saturn
the 10
is
and the
mastery.
6.
Yeah, got it.
The 8 is the 11 from the 10. So that means that you get the rewards. So if you've been doing a good job, it's not only the house and because it's the critical, it's the 10, and now the rewards come in. So if you have been doing a good job and you've been true to yourself and you've been in accordance with what you need to do, and didn't complain, you get a promotion. Or otherwise, you will get the insights, because let's not forget the context of this eclipse. You will get the insights of I've been wasting my time. I need to do what I need to do. I need to change my life completely. And most of the time is career, because Saturn is the natural ruler of career.
The 10th,
So
yeah. Is
this
about
is really,
mastery, yeah.
so look, you can look, literally do some research on I don't know how many charts of people that had Saturn transiting the 8th. It only happens 28, 29 years. But their life changes completely, because it always starts with career and your responsibilities in the world. So whatever you do, it's your career and it's a life-changing thing. The other thing is that the moon, ruler of their ascendant, is in part of this eclipse, right? Whenever you have the moon or the ruler of your ascendant, just like Mercury for Gemini is also very critical, because the ruler of their ascendant is there. It's very important. The other interesting thing is that this eclipse, that it happens in their second house, where it's for the moon, or especially when the moon comes, the solar eclipse, when the moon is going to be in Gemini. It's sorry, not what I wanted to say. The North Node. The North Node, the critical place for the North Node is the 12th house.
Right.
That's when the North and South Node, their critical transit place is the 12th. That's when you get your ancestral karmic insights of, why am I doing this? Why have I been doing this my whole life? And with Saturn in the 8th, you might have some insights of, even some dream that your great-grandfather was, I don't know, a writer. And now suddenly you have to write and change your whole career, because you've been, I don't know, working as a mechanic. And now suddenly you have all these insights that you have to write. And you are going to change your career completely. And it's going to be very successful. That's wonderful. That's really, really fantastic. So that's for Cancer. For Cancer is going to be really important. Of course, like we mentioned, one of the biggest stars will be the dual signs, Jupiter, Pisces, Virgo, and Gemini rising.
It's anything that's mutable, yes.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very important. If you have also a lot of planets in these signs, yes, it's going to be affecting you as well, because now the eclipse is going to be on an angle from most of your planets. Let's say you have Mars and is the ruler of your ascendant for Scorpio, and you have it in Virgo. You bet it's going to impact you. That's going to be one of course, it depends how far it is, the degrees wise, how far it is, but it's going to be important. For Taurus, it's going to be important as well, because the solar eclipse happens in their second house, and the moon, it's a critical place, especially the full moon and the new moon. The critical place for those is the second, because that's the critical place for the moon. And for Pisces is extra relevant, because the solar one is going to be with Mercury retrograde. I know it's again a controversial thing. We like, especially the faster planets being retrograde. The critical house for Mercury to transit is the 4th, because that's when you get your fair share in life.
How about I'll get up the second eclipse chart while you're talking. You keep talking, and I'll put the second eclipse chart up.
Mercury is important for the 4th in the sense of managing your life in the right way for you to get your fair share in life. When we have a bad Mercury with a bad 4th house, we cannot manage our life in a good way that is beneficial for us. So we are running a deficit. It's just not good. But when Mercury is retrograde in the 4th, and it only happens, you will be surprised, it only happens every 5 years.
That Mercury retrogrades in the 4th house?
In the 4th house, it only happens every 5 years. So that's the time when you can start building your life. That's your opportunity to start building your life in a better way. We want Mercury to be retrograde, because especially when it's with an eclipse, if it's retrograde, it's not combust. When planets are combust, they cannot act on their own, because they are with the sun, they are in the rays of the sun, and they cannot produce a lot. This Mercury is wonderful. It's retrograde, it's in its own sign, it's doing great. It's much better. It's still in the same sign with the sun, so it will still get agitated. It's with the moon, you know, so there will be some things, you know, for Jupiter, for Pisces rising people, what Mercury here with the moon and the sun does, and especially with Rahu, it will make them think that they can get into this kind of get rich fast schemes, you know. Oh, I can get into, I don't know what, cryptocurrency. Don't. Again, it's an illusion. It's an unrealistic expectation with moon and Rahu there. Don't. Be patient, be aware, listen to your the inner voice, look for your dreams. Those are going to guide you. Whatever you can do to get this kind of psychic inspiration, go for it. Do not go for unrealistic, real external things, because they are never going to work. You are going to be disappointed, especially when it comes to your fourth house, which is your fortune in life and your fair share in life. I would hate for you guys to be disappointed and to lose on when it comes to this, because that's your chance to build your life again in a very, very nice. You have Jupiter in the first. Listen to the purpose of your life. Don't go into this trap of no, it doesn't work. It will not work.
This is for Pisces rising people. Is it the
Especially
same
for Pisces?
Yeah, is it the same for
And
Pisces
Virgo
sun?
rising.
Yeah. Or so Pisces or Virgo rising sun or moon as well, would you say, also need to be aware of this to a lesser extent?
Less, very less.
Very less. Okay.
Unless you have a sun in Pisces at 19 degrees or 5 degrees, yeah, then you bet. Or the moon as well. The moon in Pisces at, or in Virgo at 5 degrees or 19 degrees, yeah, okay. Then it's a different story. But
yep.
Yeah. Especially, you know, Gemini people, very, 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 very big VIPs of this eclipse, because the ruler of their ascendant is there. The eclipse happens in their sign. It's on their axis, on all their axes, you know, so all their angles. Gemini people are also going to have some life-changing events that are actually going to be very auspicious and very good. So those are the big fans of
the big guns. So if you're Cancer, if you're Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, or Sag, hang on to your hats. I would also add, from a Western perspective, with this secondary eclipse that we're looking at, that Leo people might feel it too, because solar eclipses tend to have an impact on Leo people, because the sun is the ruler of their sign and it's being eclipsed in this case. So
Leo people as well, and also Taurus as well, because Saturn is transiting their 10. We mentioned as well that the 10 house is critical for Saturn. So Taurus, and also because they have the eclipse in their second, so the moon is going to be there. So Taurus as well, people are going to be you know, VIPs of this year as well, because the next one is going to be the next series of eclipses is going to be on. So this is a preparation for Taurus Scorpio people for the next coming eclipses next year that are going to be on the Taurus Scorpio axis.
Yep, that's right.
So Taurus Taurus is also going to be definitely impacted. Yeah.
So hang on, everybody. It's all going to happen.
Yep. Yeah. So but then again, you know, you need to look where your ascendant ruler is. That's also an important sign. If you have the ascendant ruler in Gemini, Pisces, or the rest, you know, you don't have to have the rising. It's still going to be impacting you.
And
it's very important.
What about the IC or the MC in these on these degrees or around these degrees as well? We've got the ascendant.
Yeah, but it's not going to be far away from most of the Gemini, you know, the dual signs rising. People are going to have the, you know, the MC somewhere there, you know. It's not going to be far away, unless, you know, for the people born very far north in Europe, you know, or Alaska or something, that might be different, where the MC falls. I've seen charts from the north, and they have MC and AC, you know, ascendant and MC in the same sign.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it can be if it hits your MC or your descendant, can be. And keep in mind, whatever that planet is, if it's about, you know, if you have, for example, let's say you have Jupiter in Gemini, right, where this whole eclipse happens, and Jupiter, let's say, rules your fourth house. Now you have an eclipse with the ruler of your fourth house. Yeah, that would be, again, you know, that would be probably Virgo rising, because Jupiter will rule their fourth house as well, you know. So again, you know, it all. So yeah, you probably you get some insights of where you want to move. You don't like, suddenly you have some insights and you think like, oh my God, I've been living here and I don't like it. I'm not happy here. I need to move. I need to change.
Maybe it's time with this eclipse, if that's what you've got.
Exactly, yeah. So you need to figure out where it falls, what are the planets that it hits, what are those planets ruling, so that you can get closer and closer. And don't forget, see the theme of your year. If you have your Jupiter there and it rules your seventh house, it doesn't mean that you get married or you have insights. If it's not in your solar, if it's not a theme for your solar return, it's not going to happen. It's probably going to be something, maybe a casual encounter at the supermarket, but that's the extent of it. You need to have the whole picture, right? Don't take it out of the context. So but you bet these eclipses are this is going to be a wonderful one.
I'm so pleased to hear that. Now, you've just illustrated a beautiful point, Joanna, which all through this video actually, which is that it's going to be different for everybody. What you experience from this eclipse is going to be very different to what your neighbor experiences, and even people with the same rising sign are going to experience very different things based on their natal chart. So for anyone who is concerned or interested to know what this eclipse holds for them, you might like to get a reading with Joanna, because as you can tell, she's very knowledgeable and she really knows what she's doing here. And if you want to know how it's going to play out in your life, this particular eclipse, then head over to Guiding Star, the website, www.guidingstar.astrology.com, and go to the readers page where you can book a reading with Joanna to find out how this eclipse is going to impact your life. I might go get one myself, because I'm a Pisces rising. So I want to say a big thank you, Joanna, for joining us with such valuable, deep information about this eclipse. I'm excited about this Saros cycle. In fact, I'm excited about this one and the one coming up at the end of the year as well. I think we're in for some really good times, and it's after last year, it's about time. So bring it on.
The next one, I will just put a small trailer. It's all about falling in love. It's going to be wonderful. So
it's going to be
make
great.
sure, you know how I see it sometimes, because everything has of course, a rolling ball, the thing is that you want to be prepared whenever you fall in love. So now, if it happens to hit you this eclipse, you need to go to the right place, because if you keep on your own, on the same path, and you are afraid to change, you are afraid of these insights, you are afraid, then the next eclipse comes that maybe, it's a hint that you might fall in love, but you are in the wrong place. Isn't it a pity? You need to do this right now. You need to go to the right place, whatever it might be. It might be a physical location. It might be your career. It might be your, going back home. That can also be taking care of your parents that you think now, oh my God, I never want to do that. Well, do that, because next eclipse comes, and that's where you meet Mr. Right. It's so important to do this step by step. Everything it's time for everything. Don't rush into things to get this immediately right now. No, because in 6 months, you know what I find always with predictions? I always find it so tricky, because again, it's out of the context. You might want that job now, but in 6 months, you are going to think, oh, thank God, thank God that I didn't get that job. That's that's the nature of life and the nature of all these events that we are predicting. Maybe in 6 months, if I tell you now, well, might be a separation, and you say, oh my God, no, I don't want to get divorced. And in 6 months, thank God I got divorced,
Yeah.
You need to see it in the context, don't
And
take it out.
trusting, I find too that trusting that the energy that's playing out is playing out the way it's meant to, you know. We sometimes get so afraid of certain terms, like you've just said, divorce, you know, but maybe that's the best thing that could happen to us, you know, or, you know, so allowing the energy of the universe to flow through and do what it needs to do without fighting it, I think is so key, and can really enhance our lives. Trusting the universe has our back is the bottom line to all of that, and it will with this eclipse as well. Whatever needs to play out will play out.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is that I see, and sometimes, oh, no divorce, no divorce. But then a year later, they are the ones that want the divorce.
Yes.
And they think like, oh, thank God there's this transit that allows me to get divorced. Can you imagine otherwise, you know, that you want to, but there's no circumstance to do that. And you are miserable for another 3 years.
Yes.
So don't see it out of the context, because you never know what's going to happen to you, how you are going to think in a year. Maybe you have a different opportunity to go have another job and you want to get divorced. Or maybe, you know, your husband changes, or he does this or the other, and you literally realize that you want to do that, you know. So it's not for now. Don't see it as in now. See it as a...
Well, that's the thing I find with eclipses, is their purpose is to take us more into our destiny, to take us more towards our North Node, individual North Node destiny, what we're here to do, the energy that we're here to embrace. And sometimes it does that through a kick in the pants to get us back on track with what we're meant to be doing and what we're meant to be experiencing and growing through. Sometimes it might do it through landing, you know, the opportunity of a lifetime in our lap. So we've got to, again, trust that the energy is doing what it's meant to be doing for our greater good. Well, Joanna, it has been a thrill to do this reading, this video with you. We'll have to make this a regular occurrence, because eclipses are such important events each year. And I just love talking about them with you and just listening to your vast knowledge. Thanks so much for your time. Once again, people, if you would like to have a reading with Joanna, head to the website, go to the readers page, and you can book an astrology reading with Joanna there. She's very reasonably priced and does live readings with you one-on-one, which is really special. So yeah, enjoy the eclipse, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.